everybody, Mark Agnesi here for Gibson TV. Today, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee at the studio of my friend, guitarist, and rock and roll icon, Peter Frampton. Now, 2024 marks Peter's 60th year of being a professional touring guitar player. And with over 20 million albums sold, you know he's got some cool guitars lying around this place. And no little things like mass floods or plane crashes can keep a good guitar collector down. What you're about to see may shock you. This is the collection with Peter Frampton. We are here now with Peter Frampton. Peter, thank you for having us out to the studio. This is nice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, it's a dream come true to have a place like this. Also, Chuck Ainley, who's my favorite engineer, he's made it his room now, and he's, Dire Straits and, and so many country things. I mean, with his help, this room just sounds incredible.
How long have you been in Nashville now?
I've been here this time about 12, 13 years now.
Yeah. And the studio's been around the whole...
Yes. I bought the studio within the first year I was here. Yes. Richard Landis owned it before. It was called Fool on the Hill. He pretty much sold me the building and the studio. He left me quite a bit of outboard gear, but most of what you see here is what I brought with me. I've collected. I'm a gear nut as well as a guitar nut. So,
well, that's why we're here today. So, I think we should just get started here.
Yeah.
I want to go way back. When you were a kid, when did guitars come on your radar? Is there a moment or something that you remember noticing the guitar and going, "Ooh, I want to do that"?
Well, it was as soon as I saw on TV a Fender Stratocaster. I was about seven and a half, and I saw Buddy Holly on a filmed thing from America that we were allowed to see in England, and he was playing the Strat.
Yeah.
Right after that, I saw Eddie Cochran playing a Gretsch, and then I saw Hank Marvin with the Shadows again playing now this
Fiesta Red.
Yeah. Strat, and I have one of those.
Yeah.
Exactly made by the same people that make Hank. So, and that was it. But my dad wouldn't let me have a Strat. Well, we couldn't afford one anyway. He said, it's just a piece of wood. There's no F holes or hole in the middle. How is that going to sound like a guitar? My first guitar was real electric, was a Hofner Club 60. So it was kind of your Les Paul shaped Hofner, After that was in my first band, the True Beats. And then I moved on to Guild Starfire. And I was still a couple of years away from my first Les Paul.
Now, you are the first English guitar player that we've had on this series, so there's a lot of questions that I haven't got to ask anybody yet. What was the guitar culture like in England back? I mean, I know Gibson and Fender guitars were kind of hard to come by. Were people talking about it? What were you aspiring to own?
We were all sweating profusely over the Selmer catalog. Selmer was the big store in London. We'd have the Les Pauls, the Wes Montgomery guitar, all these great Gibsons and the Fenders, and they would all be in this one big catalog that Selmer would put out. During math lesson, I would be drawing guitars. That's what we did back then, because I didn't have one that I wanted. I was just obsessed with electric guitars. It was just everything that I wanted to do. Everything was guitars.
Yeah. Now, you started young. Who were you guys? What were you listening to? What were you trying to emulate when you first started?
I always gravitated towards those artists that played guitar as well as sung. Yeah. And I didn't realize, but I was choosing Buddy Holly, wrote his own songs, which was kind of new at that point, and same with Eddie Cochran. But then Cliff Richard, our English Elvis, he took his backup band, which were called the Drifters originally, which shows you how cut off from America we were in 1958, 1959, 60. And so they got a cease and desist letter from the American Drifters, and changed their name to the Shadows. Then I couldn't get enough of just Hank Marvin's playing. That was who I wanted to be. So I went to Woolworths and I found some horn-rimmed sunglasses, and I knocked the glass out, and I wore those when we played with this first band who I was in, the True Beats.
I hear Hank Marvin's name come up all the time with the guitar players from your class. It seems like Hank Marvin was really the guy that set it all off in England. What was it about his playing or that sound, or what was it that drew you to that?
I think it was the sound. We'd never, up until that point, Hank had the first 58 Strat in England. You know, to hear that through a Vox AC-15 for the first time on record with Apache was kind of like listening to, later on in '67, listening to Sgt. Pepper for the first time.
Yeah, game changer.
It was a game changer. That was the inspiration for so many bands that came out of Europe.
All right, let's get started.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite models of Les Paul SG Standard. Is what, 1962?
1962, yes.
The only year
that had the block. Yeah.
Which is my favorite. I love this.
And as we were saying earlier, that so many people have said to me, oh, that's nice. Do you do that yourself? And I said, no. That it came that way.
This only in 62, for whatever reason, we did the ebony blocks, and I absolutely love it. Now, this is a guitar that you had early on, right?
Yeah, Humble Pie.
Original PAFs?
Yes. All the same.
Now, for somebody who's so well known for the Les Paul, when do you go SG now? Is there certain songs that you would pull an SG out for?
It depends. I've written songs on it, like Mr. Churchill record. There were a couple where I actually wrote on this guitar and used it. It's got a more aggressive sound. This one does. I have two. Whereas the other one I have, which might be a late 61, but it still has this on there, is sweeter sounding. But this one is more the Barker,
the rocker.
Yeah, the rocker.
And does this come out on the road with you? Is this one that comes out?
It would do if I was, but it hasn't in a while. But I played this on many tours.
Is anything off limits for you on the road, or are there certain guitars that are studio only, or will everything come out?
Oh, we will bring out a guitar that I don't take on the road, yes. It's the 59 335. And that one, because it's so special, I have a 64 335, which I use a lot nowadays on the road.
That one goes out. And it's got to have a little bit of pickguard warp on here just to know it's authentic. You know, that's how you know it's the real deal right there.
There we go.
Great way to start.
All right.
Watermelon is my favorite shade of cherry. There's a song title in there,
right, there
somewhere.
Is.
Tell me what we're looking at here.
This is a 1959 335, patent applied for us, obviously, and it's very rare because all of the 335s up until 60, 61 were sunburst.
Or it's occasionally blonde. Those
right, right. Exactly.
You're only two.
Right. And then towards the end of 59, they were experimenting with different colors.
Yeah.
And that's when this came out. But I don't think there's very many melon ones.
It's really kind of a 59 and early 60 thing, and the cherry kind of got refined to what it became by midway through 60. But I don't know how it's reading on camera. This is not even checked. This is like one of the mintest 59 Dotnecks I've ever seen. It's crazy.
It's beautiful.
When does a 335 come out? When do you need semi-hollow?
Most of the time.
Is it a weight thing? Is it a tone thing?
No, it's purely this one is beautiful feel. I've often said, once I got the 64 first, which is the Freddie King year, and the difference is the 64 again is brighter and heavier. This is lighter and more. A much warmer sound to it. They could be built. built on the same day by the same luthier.
Next one down the line. Yeah.
And they sound completely different, you know, because of the wood, the grain, the whatever, the pickups, whatever. I've often said that, you know, if I was asked, okay, you can only have one guitar, what would you have? It would be a 335.
Just does it all.
I mean, I used this specific one on our blues album, all blues, nearly, and on the instrumental album, Frampton Forgets the Words.
Now, where did this one come from?
This came from Mr. Gary Dick.
Gary's Classic Guitars.
Gary's
Cincinnati.
Classic Guitars, yeah.
Gary gets good stuff.
Well, he lived way too close to me in Cincinnati. That was the problem. So, yeah, this one was expensive.
Well, look at it, man. I mean, come on. The color and the condition
I know.
I think it was worth it.
But he had it right by the door as I walked in, and he knew that I loved 335s. So he put it out specially just to, you know.
Yeah, that's killer.
But it's one of my all-time favorites, this one.
Killer guitar. Now, you started very young. When did you join your first band, and when were you out doing it?
My very first band was not even semi-pro. We were just a school band, the Little Ravens. It was a piano player, myself, a bass player, and we had to borrow the drummer from George Underwood. George Underwood was David Bowie's best friend and mine still to this day. We lent them, George and the Dragons, this band was cool. We lent George our bass player, and he lent us his drummer. Now I'm about, I guess, 11. We formed this band called the True Beats, and we did all Shadows Ventures numbers. They wanted to turn professional, and my dad being a teacher, I was 12, I think, at the time, 11 or 12, and he said, I don't think my son is going to be going professional at 12. I think he has some schooling left to be done. I was asked to leave that band, or my father got me out of it, basically. And then when I was 14, I was working on the weekends at this music shop in Beckenham. I would just come in, you know, get a couple of pounds for a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday day, and I would clean all the guitars, restring them. And we had this place, it was well known in Beckenham. They had gone completely overboard. They had ordered all these American guitars.
Wow.
So there was Gretsch's, Gibsons, Fenders, you name it. There wasn't a Hofner in the house, I don't think. They were all American, you know. Then local band members would come in, and there would be jam. We'd jam on Saturday. And then one day, this guy comes in, Tony Chapman. He is actually the very original drummer of the Rolling Stones before Charlie. He said, would you be interested in, joining the band? I said, I can't play Sunday nights, because I'll have a math test on Monday morning. Well, just do Fridays and Saturdays then. And then, of course, they slipped in the odd Sunday. And Monday morning, I would come into school like this, I'd got like 3 hours sleep because Tony was the original drummer of the Rolling Stones. Bill Wyman was his dear friend, and he'd actually brought Bill into the Stones. So there I am now with this band, The Preachers, up in London in a big studio for the first time. Bill Wyman's producing it, and Glenn Johns is engineering it. It's like...
And you're 14.
And I'm 14, so... and then we're gigging as well. So this year, 2024, is my 60th year of touring.
Wow.
When it was coming to the time when I was going to go back to school, and 16, I could have dropped out, or I could have gone back and done to the sixth form and done my A levels, and then gone to music college, which was my plan. Andrew Bown and Gary Taylor came to one of the Preachers shows, and after the show, they asked me, would you ever think about turning professional? I said, I don't think this is going to go down well with my parents turning. I've tried this once before. I go home, and very nervously, I sit them both down, and I said, Mom, Dad, the Herd, they've asked me if I'll drop out of school and go turn professional. And I could see, I'm looking at my mother because it's the easiest way to look. You know, I know it's going to, and over here is my dad, and I can virtually see steam coming out of his ears, you know. And so my dad's going, well, I'm not sure about that. You know, and my mother looked at me and winked and said, leave it with me. The rest, as we say, is history. You know,
Another one of my favorite guitars of all time, the Les Paul Jr. This one's got some fun modifications. What year is this thing from?
58.
1958. We got the badass bridge,
Right.
Grovered, all the stuff that you just kind of want.
Yeah,
to do.
I changed these.
But
it's the original P90.
Yeah, great weight too.
Yes, it is. And let me tell you, if Humble Pie were going to play a gig, the original lineup, we were going to play a gig tonight, Steve Marriott would be playing this.
Yeah.
Because this would be his sound. I use the word barker. It barks like it's incredible. This has got so much depth and so much attack. And if you want to rock out, this is the one to do it with.
So when do the P90s come out as opposed to the humbucker guitar?
Well, this would be, I use this on record. I have used this on stage. I used to use this for slide. Yeah, we used to come out and I used to start with this guitar with slide. And it's a killer guitar, killer sound.
How long has this been in the collection? Is this more of a recent?
No, I've had this in 25 years. I've had this a long time, this one.
Yeah.
This one's been there. I have the TV 2 pickup model 57.
Yeah.
That one I got later. That was a present from my wife at the time. So she knew that a vintage guitar was the way to go for me.
It's just, don't mess around with the socks or the underwear.
Yeah.
Straight to TV specials.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great. When one P90 isn't enough.
Right, you get two.
You get two P90s.
And on the Almost Famous soundtrack, I wrote with Gordon Kennedy and played with Nancy Wilson and her band because she created the band sound for Stillwater, the band and then Cameron Crowe asked me to write. I wrote one, and then I told him he needed me to write another one, so I wrote two, and they used them both. So, but this is the guitar that I used on those tracks.
That's great. What year is this one? This is a 1957. We've got a modified bridge here. Is this the Music City or is this the Mojo? Or which one is this?
It's a great session player here in town, makes these.
Bukovac?
Yes, and he said you need one of these because he was in here doing a session. Bukovac was in here, and he said, you need the right bridge on that. We've done something much better. I told him I needed one of these on the 58 too, because he said it'll be perfectly in tune with this.
Yeah, you notice a big difference in
absolutely.
intonation.
So it's phenomenal. So I really thank him for that.
When it comes to vintage guitars, are you a screw counter? Does originality, what needs to be original for you to do it, and what are you okay with changed parts? Stuff like bridges, refrets, stuff like that is cool.
Right. Well, when it's something that I play, I do change things. I'm a player. I'm much more of a player than a collector. I like to have different colors on my palette, you know, and so I'll go all the way from the 58 single one to the 2 pickup to, you know, the humbuckers then to a Tele, to a Strat, to a Jaguar, you know, all of them, and they've all got specific sounds, you know, that I know I can get out of this guitar that I can't get the same sound out of this that I can get out of the 58.
The Junior, yeah.
Yeah, the Junior. If I'm buying something now, I like it to be completely as original as possible. As well as being a player, it is a collectible item, you know. But back in the old days, you know, I was stripping guitars and painting them and doing all sorts of horrible stuff to ruin their value. But we had no idea, you know, back then.
Before they took off. So this one was a gift.
Yes.
That's a good gift.
It's a very nice gift, yeah. And it's a lovely, lovely guitar.
Who would have thought a yellow guitar would be so cool, man?
I know.
It's not on paper, just not what you'd think. But man, can we talk about 2010 Nashville the flood?
Oh gosh.
How did you hear that it was going down, and what did you do when you knew it was going down?
Well, at that time I was living in Cincinnati, and I was at the airport in Cincinnati trying to fly to Nashville, and I kept calling people in Nashville. I said, "What's going on? Every time I get on a plane, it's canceled." And they said, "Oh, there's terrible weather here." I didn't realize how bad it was. Bands that didn't even live in Nashville had their gear stored at Soundcheck. It's right by the river. They said they were going to have to open the dam because it was getting crazy. It would have broken otherwise. They said it would probably get to the bottom of the steps of Soundcheck. Well, it didn't. It went all the way up. And when people went in to look at the gear, they went in on jet ski things, because the water was this. If that's the floor, the water was this high. My marshals were just above the water line.
Wow.
So many people lost their guitars. I mean, I lost 44 guitars. Nothing was
salvageable, or were you able to save a couple?
I saved my my Epiphone acoustic,
the Texan,
64 Texan that I wrote all the songs on.
Yeah.
A lot of the acoustics were the top and the back were like this. They were the sides just went like this because of they were underwater for 3 days. So the building was not insured for flooding, but my business manager,
thank God,
had insured us for flood. So I did okay. Thank God.
That's why I say your collection is different, because a lot of the stuff that you did collect throughout the course of your career was lost then.
Right.
What you have now is what you purposefully went out with intention.
But there were a lot of Les Pauls. I took them to or sent them over to Mike McGuire at the custom shop.
Yeah.
He was responsible for getting me my first Peter Frampton Les Paul. So he said, "There's so much toxicity in these guitars. You won't be able to get paint on them to redo them or whatever. And a lot of the Les Pauls just split like this." Yeah. There was so much stuff in the water there because right next door to Soundcheck, there was a place, and there was all battery acid in the water. There was, you name it, it was in the water. It was so horrible.
No, I mean, tragic event, but like to get a check from the insurance company and get to go shopping had to have been kind of exhilarating as well.
Yes, and I was very close to, in Cincinnati, we have Gary Dick's guitars.
Gary Dick's classic guitars. I know Gary well.
You're not going to Gary's, are you? No, dear, no. No, I'm not going there. No. Why would I go there?
I mean, you got to have an Epiphone in here too. And this is more than an Epiphone. This is the Epiphone.
Yeah.
This one survived the flood.
It did. This is flood damage here.
All of that on the headstock?
Yeah. That's flood damage there, but and a little bit here. But this one I bought, Steve Marriott had a Frontier Epiphone.
Love those two, yeah.
More of a dreadnought shape.
Maple back, yeah.
This is on every Humble Pie album that I'm on.
Yeah.
If there's an acoustic, this is on it. This is
the guitar you're hearing.
And this is the guitar that I wrote just about every song that's on the live record on here, apart from Go to the Sun, which I wrote on piano.
Show Me the Way.
Show Me the Way, Baby, I Love Your Way. And those two were written in the same day. So it's kind of a Dolly Parton story.
Yeah, Dolly story there.
No, this was in the Bahamas. I took this with me, and I took the Phenix with me, and went down and borrowed Steve Marriott's cottage. I wrote, Show Me the Way in the morning. Then as the sun was setting, I wrote Shadows Grow So Long Before Your Eyes. And then Moving Across the Page was this too. Show Me the Way I wrote inside, and Baby I Love Your Way I wrote under a palm tree on the beach in Nassau. So
it's a good day. Question, growing up and being in England, were Epiphones more accessible there than Gibson's? Just, I mean, because at this time they're both being made in Kalamazoo on the exact same line by the exact same people, but it seems like all of the English bands had Epiphone casinos and Texans and Wilshires and Coronets and all that kind of stuff.
One reason, they were cheaper. And therefore, the guitar shops, I think, were more likely to import
once
the
you
Epiphone.
throw the VAT and all the other
Right,
stuff on top of it,
yes.
so.
We had the Hofners before we had the Fenders, the Strats, and the Les Pauls, you know, or SGs or whatever. That's why the Beatles had all Epiphones.
Yeah.
You know, this one, it's November 1964, and Paul's one that he played yesterday on is 64 too. It's 3 months younger than this one.
Yeah.
Or older, sorry. It's 3 months older, I believe.
If you're looking at all your guitars, what percentage would you say are electric versus acoustic?
Yeah, no, I have less acoustics than I do electrics, I think. But you know what? That's a question I can't answer. I haven't looked at the list recently.
When you got to look at the list, you know you're doing something right. You're doing it right. If there needs to be a
This
list,
is terrible, I know. But, you know, I forget the years of them, and that doesn't matter to me. You know, people get very, very nerdy about, you know, about years and
who would do that?
Right.
Like, who would even care about stuff like that?
But to me, it's just, how does it sound? Like I said, with my first burst, I sold it because it wasn't something I was playing. I wasn't enjoying playing that sound. But later on, I figured out that I probably do like that sound.
Should probably get another one. Well, I mean, we talk about how incredible the Phenix is. This is, in terms of your guitar, this is equally as iconic.
Yes. And this one is the guitar used on the live record as well.
This wrote some of the biggest hits in the history of rock and roll. This is a pretty cool Epiphone, kids. This is as good as it gets right here. Amazing. We have to talk, obviously, about the Phenix, and I know you've told this story 8 million times. I need you to resurrect your enthusiasm for telling this story one more time. We need the nerdiest, most in-depth story of this guitar. Now, obviously, I put this guitar easily in the top 5 most famous Les Pauls of all time. You know, Jimmy Page is number 1. You got Greenie.
Yes.
You've got Lucy. You've got Pearly Gates.
Right.
And you got the Phenix.
Right.
It's one of the greatest guitar stories of all time. Let's start at the very beginning. When did you first get your hands on that guitar? How did that happen?
Well, I had a 62 SG. I was with Humble Pie. I forget where we were, but we were going to San Francisco the next couple of days. But wherever I was, I found someone who had a 335. I got rid of the SG because I had to part exchange it, you know. And then we went to San Francisco. First time I played this guitar was at the Fillmore West. I think we were opening for the Grateful Dead. Every time I turned up for a solo, we played so loud, my guitar just fed back.
Yeah.
So it was, my every solo was very, not what I wanted at all.
Yeah.
A friend that I'd made before of the band we'd made, this friend Mark Mariana, he said, my friend told me you had a little problem. Well, what guitar do you have? He said, well, I've got this Les Paul that I just got back from Gibson. They've refinished it. I put an extra pickup. I made it like the Miracles. It's like the 57, you know, with the black 3 pickup. I said, oh my goodness. I said, well, I'm not big on Les Pauls. I haven't had great luck with them in the past. I loved the SG and everything. But you know what? Please, can I borrow it? Because anything's going to be better. Anything solid is going to be better. Yeah. When he came to the coffee shop in the morning at the Ramada Inn, I remember exactly where we were. He opened it up and it was looked brand spanking new. And I went, oh my God, that's gorgeous. It's a beautiful looking guitar. You still don't get a sound check in those days, you know, because the headliner is late and whatever. And so I plugged it in and I don't think my feet touched the ground the whole night. It was an epiphany. It just absolutely blew me away, the sound of it, especially the neck pickup. So anyway, at the end of the 2 or 3 nights, whatever it was, any chance you would, you know, sell this? And he said, no. I said, oh, I figured that. It's so great. He said, no, I'm going to give it to you.
Wow.
And the band didn't hear that, and they thought I took it from him and didn't pay him any money. But no, I have given him so many number ones of all the different runs, of all the Frampton guitars. Yeah. He has like a room full of Frampton guitars now, because I can never, ever thank him enough, you know.
Now, tell me the story of losing that guitar. How did that go down?
Okay, well, we're doing our first South American tour, and 1980. We've done Argentina, we've done Brazil, and we're leaving Caracas, Venezuela for Panama. Woke up the next day off, and the gear was being flown up. And that's when my tour manager, Rodney Eckerman, then came to me, and I got a huge lunch plate, you know, which I never ate. And he told me what happened. I said, everything? He said, yeah, it's still on fire right now. That's what he said. And it was on the front page of all the South American newspapers. Just a huge explosion. You know, it never got off the runway. We were more worried about the fact that people had perished. That's when the crew went out and tried to find guitars, and we'd lost everything. And PA, and drums, and then about 5:30, the door opens and someone threw in one of those black tubes that you connect the washer and dryer, you know, and said, here's your talk box tube. I said, I don't think so. Yeah. So, and they had tried all day, you know, they had 3 guitars they found. I mean, the music shop was guitars and strings on one side, bridles and saddles on the other side. You know, that's what we're talking about, where we were. But we managed to finish the tour. The only day we didn't play was Panama.
Wait, now, in your mind, it's gone.
Oh,
it's gone. There's no hope.
No.
There's no hope whatsoever.
I sent back my tech a week later after Puerto Rico. He flew back down to Caracas and took all these pictures of the remains of the plane. And you could see the outlines of guitars in cases that were just
ash.
Yeah. Unbeknownst to JD, though, this guy had already sold a bunch of guitars.
So they didn't all go up.
No. We think what happened was things weren't lashed down properly. And you put everything at the front. You don't put it at the tail. So the strap's broken.
Everything slid
back. The wing touched. Bingo. Gone. So that was it. But we didn't know that at the time. It wasn't until 30 years later.
And 30 years later, how did this, is it a call? Is it an email out of the blue? How did you find out that your guitar might still be in one piece and around?
It's an email.
An email?
Curacao is an island where you retire off the coast of Caracas.
Yeah.
I got this email and I opened it, and there were a dozen photos of the guitar with strings, without knobs, without pickups, they'd taken it apart. And once they showed me the picture of
the cavities and everything,
I went, oh my God, that is my guitar. One of the guys that worked at the airport was a part-time luthier. One day he's just in his music shop, and this young kid comes in, early teens, and brings in this guitar. Could you just do me a favor? This is my dad's old guitar, and it doesn't play well. And would you be able to make it so that I can play it? He opens it up, and his eyes like go this big, and he knows what it is. Son, just leave it with me overnight. I'll do something, what I can to it, and come back tomorrow, and I'll have it all ready for you. So the kid leaves, and this guy gets on the phone to his friend in the Netherlands, who's the guitar guru, and he shows him all these pictures, and he said, that's Frampton's. I didn't say it was mine, because I was frightened that at that point. I said, I've got to hold it to know that it's mine. The kid comes back in the morning, and the luthier says, you know this is Peter Frampton's guitar, right? His father played the guitar in Caracas for 15 years. Then people started saying, isn't that? And so they moved to Curacao. He put it in the closet. And then he had a child. And then this child grew up. And that's when he went to the closet and said, Dad, can I take him? Yeah. So that's the background story there. The kid comes back in. I want to buy a brand new Gibson, and I want a good one. So I'll give you this back. I'll give this back to you for $5,000. The luthier doesn't want to pay for the guitar because it's stolen property.
Fair, yeah.
So he goes, this is so wild. He goes to the Minister of Tourism of Curacao, tells him the story. This is Frampton's guitar. It would be such a great story for Curacao, for tourism, if Curacao, the island, would buy this guitar back for Frampton and give it to him. So they went with it. They fly up, and from when they walk in the hotel suite, it's on film. If you go to YouTube, and it's a 20-minute documentary basically on me getting this thing back. I opened it up and put it on my lap and I knew it was mine. I said, yep, it's mine.
How good did that feel to have that thing back?
God. It was just one of the best feelings in the world, you know. We all got in our vehicles and went straight over to Gibson. It seemed like everybody from Gibson was in this small little area. And then we started taking it apart and looking at the cavities and, you know, it's either a 54 or 55 Black Beauty. And so that was it, you know. And I just asked Gibson, don't get rid of the scars, just make it, like the kid, make it playable, you know. And that's what they did. And it's in the same condition now. I just said to the band, you know, I know we don't usually do it. I said, but do you think we could just run the intro of Do You Feel? I just would like to check my amp. Well, I now had the Phenix on with my back to them and started playing it. And I turned, and the sound is so recognizable. And I turned around and they're all going, the guys in the band are all going. And then we played a bunch of numbers off Comes Alive that we weren't even doing just because, and it was just like, Doobie Wah, same thing, you know, oh my God, it sounds, I've missed this, you know. And so then the very first gig we did with it, at the end of the show, where we usually start Do You Feel, we put the lights all the way down and my tech put the Phenix in the middle of the stage. The lighting guy just hit it with every Super Trooper in the building, spotlight, and the crowd went nuts.
Yeah.
It was, I got chills thinking about it.
The Phenix.
Yes, it is.
I first have to ask, because obviously everyone knows this as the Phenix. I'm assuming that name didn't come about until after you got it back. Did this guitar have a name before that? I mean, it was
it was the only guitar I played.
Yeah.
So it was the guitar,
yeah.
My guitar. The only other guitar that I played was a 55 Strat, which was also in the plane, which we didn't get back. That was sold apparently as well. And I only used that for Show Me the Way because it was a clean rhythm, you know, through a twin reverb.
Yeah.
Everything else was this through my Marshalls and a couple of Leslie's as well. So this is the baby that
May I?
Yeah.
Okay. First off, that neck had to have been modified at some point because that's nice and comfy. It doesn't feel clubby like you would think a 54 or 55 would be.
No. Mark Mariana, it's a bit of a Frankenstein because Mark Mariana, who's the guy that gave me the guitar, he bought it from some guy on the street. It was green, and he bought it for $50. As we know now, it was a 54 or 55 Black Beauty.
Yeah.
The two P90s.
Staple pickup and a P90
Yeah, different
bridge.
looking ones in there. When Mark bought it, he, like I, had always loved the cover of the Miracles, Smokey and the Miracles out, with Marv Taupin holding this thing up like this. But his would have been a 57.
Yeah.
You know, the real thing.
Pickup. Yeah.
The real three pickup custom. And he I believe, dug out here for the third pickup, then sent it back to Gibson. But he sanded this. This is actually thinner than a
Yeah,
Les
this
Paul.
top carve has got an interesting dish. And
So he used various different grades of sandpaper. And this is all hand sanded for his hands.
he did all of the neck work.
Yeah.
So you told me that this originally had 2 PAFs and a pat number. You said it also had 3 double white Duncans in it at some point. What is in the guitar now?
These are all Tom Holmes pickups in there. I like the pickup that he had put that we used in the reissue.
Yeah.
I found out where he was, and he lives just outside town here, and went and spent an afternoon with Tom at his place, his basement factory of building all the pickups. And yes, I got 3 from him, and I used some of his pickups in some of my other guitars too.
But you said pretty much anything in this guitar sounds pretty magical.
Yeah, it's it might have a little. Each pickup might be a little brighter, a little warmer, but basically anything that you put in this position here, and you do that, and you have this flat out, it's the killer sound. Most of my sounds on the Humble Pie records are
just that neck pickup.
Just that neck pickup, because Steve would use this, the bridge pickup, and I wanted to be different.
Balance it,
Yeah. This was used, as I said before, on Rock On. That's when I first used it, and then Humble Pie's Rockin' the Fillmore album. This is it. That's the only guitar I used on it.
All right. Now I've done my research. From what I understand, the 3-way works as if this is a 2 pickup guitar, right?
Yes.
So you have just neck, you have neck and bridge together, and then you have bridge.
Yes.
The middle pickup can then get added
Right.
to any position.
The two on this and this switch here are all wired to this
One master volume.
One master volume. And then this one is just the volume for this. So this is the tone for both
Master
of these,
tone for that,
and this is the tone for the middle
just for
one.
the middle.
Yes.
So this can get blended however much of you want it in any one of the...
And then I can just turn these
just
off
use the middle pickup.
and just use the middle, which is as if it was a single coil, but it's a double, so it's much fatter sounding. But I love it, and blending it in with either the neck or the bridge pickup, depending on how much you bring it in, is and it's in phase. It's not out of phase.
Not out of phase like a 3 pickup, and you have control over it as opposed to
Right.
it just
you
having these two together.
You can't you can't have just the bridge pickup in the original wiring of the 3 pickup.
So this makes a lot of sense. Now, you said when you got this had come back from Gibson. I assume it looked shiny and brand new at that point.
It looked like a brand new guitar when Mark first gave it to me.
So all of this, well, how much of this, because you didn't have it for 30 years as well.
A lot of this is me right here.
All of the buckle area.
But not this. This is new. But
this neckwear.
This neckwear wasn't nowhere near as bad. But if you look on the side,
I'll hand it over to you.
I'm trying to see if I can.
The thumb.
Yeah. So here we go. There we go. You see how here, right here, it indentates right there. This was in its case on the plane, and what they think happened was that there was enough oxygen to keep the fire for this guitar. You can see how it's all melted.
All of this is from the plane crash.
All of this is from the fire. And then down the side, you can see how it's mottled. This was all bubbled up from the fire. And so we had to bring that down. It ran out of oxygen, the fire, and went out here.
Before it made its way down the rest of the guitar.
And there's one other thing here. If you can see right here.
On this little crack in the binding.
We think that's where the thing hit the ground.
The impact.
The impact mark. But we don't know. But that's a pretty intense thing.
Break in the binding.
I said, don't get rid of any of the scars. Just make it playable. You know, we've replaced the pickups. They weren't working. The electronics wasn't working. But this is more new old stock. This is more original than when I had it before the plane crash, because everybody wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. And so all the tone and volume controls underneath here are all new old stock. So they're from that era.
The right years. Yeah. And you said this came from the cream plastics came from a Steve Marriott swap.
Originally, yes.
Amazing. Where does this guitar travel with you everywhere? Is this at the house by you?
It's never more than 25 feet from me.
Yeah. Now, one of the crazy things is you didn't get this guitar back until after the flood happened.
That's correct.
Is there a chance that this would have been
possibly,
or would have been?
I think it would have been at my house. To be sitting here with it now, after what it went through, it's like that story, The Red Violin. I just wish I knew, if it could speak, where it was, where it spent those 30 years, Yeah. So, but I'm just so glad to have it back. We did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, played with Cheryl. Yeah. Jimmy Page turned up that night as well. And so we spent a little time together. In the mid-'70s, early 70s, Zeppelin came to see us play one night, and they came backstage afterwards, and Jimmy couldn't keep his hands off this guitar. He said, even asked me, did I want to sell it? And I said, I don't think so. Yeah, he couldn't keep his hands off it that night either. So it's one of those,
Well, it's like I said, it is one of the greatest Les Pauls of all time, and probably one of the greatest guitar stories. It's got there's a lot of aura coming off of this thing.
You can't make that story up.
No.
No.
That is rock and roll history. That is so great. This also looks familiar. What do we got here?
Yes, this is one of the three that had originally made first, Mike McGuire.
Yeah.
This was before we knew the Phenix was alive.
So this is the original Peter Frampton.
Yes.
Les Paul custom.
Yes, it is. And in fact, it is the exact same guitar, same pickups and everything, because this is a 500T.
Yeah.
In here. These are, and everything else is, I'm not sure what these two are, but it was the loudest pickup Gibson had.
Yeah.
At the time.
Ceramic magnet.
Right.
Big and bright. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had that in all of the three that I had that Mike had made for me. So he remade them once we lost the others in the flood. It's great because in a way, this is the last guitar I play on every show. I always use this for While My Guitar Gently Weeps, because when I first started doing it, I used this guitar, and I have to use this pickup.
You need the 500T.
I need the 500T for the sound that I'm used to for this. Again, sound. I have number 1 and number 2, which do have Tom Holmes in, I believe. This one I left
stock
as it came out.
Yeah, neck's close, but not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite. Helps to have the original one to base it off.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. People would say, "Is that the one?" I said, "No, it's not the one. It's not the one." But it's very similar. Not knowing that I would eventually get it back, the original back. But these babies are so good. These kept me going. This was just a wonderful, and it's got my name on it, so I can't complain.
Yeah, fantastic. I feel like I'm seeing double, but this is the newest Gibson Custom Shop version, because there was the first version before you had the guitar back. This one was done after getting it back, after being able to fully analyze it, scan it, get everything correct on it.
This one is a limited edition. I believe they made 25 of these that if you can see the headstock and everything.
Properly burned headstock.
Properly burnt, he's even got the impact.
Got the crack right there.
Right. So, and, it's not quite as the same, but Gibson did a fantastic job on this.
In terms of neck feel and everything, did they get that? We
based this on the Phenix. Because they were able to do that. And we went backwards and forwards quite a bit on it because it's hand sanded. It wasn't done on a machine.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to do it exactly like that.
This burning is so great. And it's like I even tried to get the little indent here.
I know.
What's your opinion on the guitars that Custom is building right now?
Oh.
I mean, you have so much great vintage stuff when you pick up something new from the Custom Shop.
They're doing a fantastic job. Yeah. I mean, this is tremendous guitar. It really is. And the ones that if you order a Peter Frampton Custom, you will get, it's not this one. This one was the high dollar one. That was the
It's basically this without the aging on it, right?
It's basically that, yes.
Yeah, this without
but it's not shiny.
Got the weight.
Yeah, it has some weight.
Really nice on it. It's actually really good. What's it like having your name on signature models from Gibson guitars?
And
Martin guitars and whoever. I mean, what's it like to,
It's an honor
to see your name on the...
To think that it makes me go back to when I was looking at all the catalogs when I was 12 and 13 and looking at all these Gibsons and Fenders and all these Martins and everything and thinking, one day I'll be able to afford one of these.
To buy one.
Buy one, right?
Yeah.
And now not only do I have a bunch of them, but these wonderful companies like Gibson and Martin have put my name on them. So I'm very honored to have that.
It looks the part.
It does.
It's as close as you're going to get to a piece of that.
Yes.
A piece of that thing. So killer. In that kind of mid to late 60s era, was anyone collecting guitars yet? Was that something that you had ever even thought of or heard of, or you had like your guitar and you trade it in and get something new?
That's it. You only had one guitar.
Yeah.
I remember I thought, well, I can't get a Stratocaster, but maybe I can get a Futurama 3, and I got rid of my Hofner Club 60, which was a great guitar. So I got the Futurama 3, and then I said, "Oh, this is horrible. I hate this." And then I got my guitar back. We were living in the time when these vintage guitars were being built.
They were just new.
They were just new guitars. Even a 59, I was 9 years old. So like a 60, 62 or 63 would be something that I would buy new if I could have afforded it,
Yeah.
And the thing was, no one realized in the early days, the mid-60s, even into the 70s, that these guitars were going to be worth what they are today, And they go up and down, the vintage value, obviously, but basically they're pretty up there. So we were actually ruining guitars back then. When Humble Pie was 68 and Steve Marriott had a Gretsch Duo Jet and I bought a Duo Jet, and he took the surrounds. We took the pick guard off, the plastic surrounds, took all that off. We used like a black paint to paint the silver things so that it all looked black. We changed everything on those guitars, not realizing what we were doing.
When did you see it start to happen? When did you go like, I think I'm going to buy a few, maybe it'd be cool to have like 4 or 5 different guitars?
Yeah, well, it was the end of the 70s, I think.
It wasn't until the end of the 70s
For me,
that really started.
I mean, when the Phenix disappeared,
yeah,
I thought, well, I'm going to buy Les Paul, a burst, and I'd always really liked the look of those, like everybody else. I bought one in 1980 for $6,500.
And did people tell you you're out?
Oh,
absolutely out of your freaking mind.
Absolutely. It was much brighter than my Phenix, which was all mahogany.
Oh my God, yeah.
Whereas the bursts have the maple on top, which made it much brighter sounding. And I wasn't thrilled with that. I was used to the more mellow sounding. So I didn't really play it that much. I couldn't find anything I liked, at that period because I was so used to the Phenix.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, we moved from New York to Florida, and I'm selling all my studio gear. I decided that, well, I'm not playing this burst very much. I found someone that wanted to buy it. I doubled my price within 2 years. I sold it for $12,500 instead of $6,500. So nearly twice. And I thought, wow. I mean, I couldn't believe I got that it was worth that amount. And then, of course, they just went up and up and up and up and up.
When was the first time you ever played one? Do you remember the first time you played a Sunburst Les Paul?
I think it might have been one of George Harrison's when we were doing All Things Must Pass. He had the session that I first met him on was for Doris Troy, who'd been one of the backup singers on Humble Pie's version, My Song Shine On. George was producing his first album for the Apple label. I'd only been there like 20 minutes. He said, "Do you want to play?" I said, "What, now?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "We just finished the song. I just finished writing the song with Stephen." I said, "Stephen who?" "Oh, Stephen Stills." So I walked down there, and it's Stephen Stills, Klaus Foreman, the team, you know. And I'm standing right next to Stephen Stills. George hands me Lucy. We didn't know Lucy was called Lucy at that point. But it's the guitar that Eric played while my guitar gently weeps on, and then gave to George. Yeah. So I'm playing this, not knowing how famous this guitar is already, because it's already played on Guitar Gently Weeps. George shows me the chords, and said, "This one's called Ain't That Cute." And it ended up being the single off the album. I'm playing very quiet rhythm because I'm playing in the same room session as the Beatles lead guitar player. So I thought, I'll just be very, very quiet. I'm not going to step out of line here. And so we get halfway through the song, and he goes, "No, Pete, I want you to play lead." So it's oh my God, I don't believe this is happening. He just asked me to play lead. So I still, you can tell, I'm still moved by that. You know, that my first Beatle meeting, I get to not only meet him, but he tells me to play lead, and he's playing rhythm, you know. So it was a very heady experience for me. George came over to me, he said, "Well, we've done a couple of tracks. Will you play on the rest of the album?" I said, "Yeah, I think I could do that."
But the first burst you ever played was George Harrison's burst that Eric Clapton gave him.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's a good place. Yeah. Oh my God. Was there a vibe already happening? Because by that point, the cat was out of the bag on those. Clapton had played, and Keith was playing them. Yeah, Peter Green was playing.
Peter Green, yeah.
What was it like to try and track one down in England? Were they nearly impossible to find, or were they around?
Yeah, but I wasn't even looking. You know, they were still at that point probably out of my price range. You know, we weren't earning that money at that much money at that point. Humble Pie and whatever. And as I said, you had one guitar, and if you needed another one, you part exchanged that one and got the new one, you know, which was a drag, obviously. But it wasn't even on my wish list because I couldn't afford something like that.
Yeah. Peter, I'm kind of at a loss right now. I think this is the first time in the history of the show we've done a burst, and it wasn't the star of the episode. This is a weird thing for me. But this has to be the most unfaded cherry sunburst finish I've probably ever seen on an original burst.
Well, I actually think that some red was added at some point.
There might be some overspray.
I think so.
Because it has like one small spot that looks a little faded here. But
yes.
Man, that's a lot of red.
Yes.
So, bursts. You told me the first one you ever played was Lucy. It's a good start.
Right.
How many of these have you owned?
This is the second one.
And both were 60s?
Both were 60s. I got small digits.
It's a neck thing.
It's the neck thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So the 60 has, in fact, I based the Gibson reissue of the Frampton, Peter Frampton custom that I worked on with Mike McGuire. I based the neck on a 60.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the Phenix to
scan.
But this is the most comfortable neck for me that I know that if it's a 60, I pick it up, it's going to be fine. You know. After the flood, I said to myself, "Self, don't you want to try your hand at a burst again?" And I said, "Yes, Self, I think I do." So I had to have one.
And you said the first one you bought was what, $6,500?
It's $6,500. Yes.
They'd gone up a little, I take it, probably by the time you got back in the burst market.
Yeah.
But yeah, an insurance check, so it's all good. No,
so it was a little bit more, yeah, unfortunately. But the history behind it is so cool because this was J.J. Cale's at one point. He either sold it or gave it to Audie Ashley, who was his producer for most of the big albums.
Yeah.
JJ uses this nearly on every track on JJKL 5.
How many did you look at before this became the one?
Looking, it was the first one I looked at.
Really?
Well, I mean, I couldn't say no to JJKL's. You know, someone...
The pedigree was too
it
good.
has the story, you know, which is so great.
So what does this do that the Phenix does? Or why would you grab this instead of that?
Okay.
What are you trying to
It's
accomplish?
brighter.
The maple top.
It has that, you know, Blues Breakers sound, because it was... Everyone thinks it's a 59, but it was a 60 on Blues Breakers. This is just very comfortable to play. I like playing this on Lines on My Face as much as I do the Phenix. The sound that this has is just an amazingly inspiring sound.
What is burst protocol on the road? How does this guitar travel when you have it out? Is there special handling, or is it just go down the road with the rest of your stuff?
It goes in the vault. I think there's about 12 that I travel with. 6 I probably use, and 6 are backups.
Spares, yeah.
You know,
But it doesn't get its own plane ticket, and it doesn't get its own concierge carrying it around and all of that.
the Phenix gets that.
You take care of the most important stuff. Well, that's a killer burst.
Yes,
Great
it
top and great story too. Love JJKL.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's got it all. When Frampton goes jazz.
Yes.
Is it, or is this, or do you do this in a rock context as well?
No, I would use this for the reason I got a 175.
What year is this?
59.
Well, I might as well be 1959 ES 175 D for the dual pickup.
In England, when I was doing my when I was in the herd, Andrew Bound and myself and Andrew Steele, the drummer, would pretend to be Kenny Burrell, Jimmy Smith, and Grady Tate. You know, we want them. But I needed a jazz guitar, and I'd seen Kenny Burrell play one of these, as well as other Gibson large bodies. But then along the way, I part exchanged it for something else. You know, I've probably had this for a good 20, 25 years as well, since I was up in Cincy. It's something that I would use just for that real nice jazz.
So this is just you're filling out the toolbox with all the tools that you need, and you got to have. I mean, how often does this thing come out?
Not very often, because I tell you, the 335s just feel better to me. Yeah, they do more. This is a one-trick pony for me, really. I would only use it
just
like
in the
this.
neck pickup.
Whereas Steve Howe from Yes, this was his main guitar, you know, and he got some incredible sounds out of his. Yeah.
I mean, is this all that you would need for that jazz thing? Are you lusting after like an L5 or a Super 400 or a carved top, arch pockets? Are you the press top?
Let me write that down. What did you say? Which one did you say?
Well, I mean, we should do a Super 400. We should do an L5 and a 4.
Well, I'd like one of each of them, obviously, but
it's a killer. Again, killer condition. 1959. Yeah. You have a way of picking. If you're going to have one, you have a way of picking the good ones. This is fantastic, man.
And it's all original.
Does it never even drilled for a second button?
Nope. I didn't want to do anything to it.
Yeah.
Just kept it.
Killer. Man cannot live on electric guitars alone.
No.
I've tried.
No.
Occasionally, we have to go acoustic, and I love this model. I love these small bodies.
This is one of my most recent acquisitions, actually.
What year is this from?
1935.
1935, and this, I believe, would be an L-O. Most people say L-00, but I believe the L-00 would have the back binding at this era as well. So this was really the absolute starting point of the Gibson acoustic line.
Yes.
And how did that cheapest guitar in the catalog survive 90 years to still be absolutely incredible is just a testament to how great these guitars are.
It's the shape of the body obviously makes a huge difference. The beauty of when I looked inside the case of this one, I opened the little cubby, and in there were the layaway papers.
Love that.
From the guy that he couldn't have it. There's about 6 payments, and they're in the case.
And how much was it? Do you remember what it said on there? I mean, it probably couldn't have been more than $40.
Yeah, it was $35.
$35?
Yeah, something like that. And he had to get it on layaway for $35. So that just made my day when I saw that.
No, I know you like the slimmer necks. That's got a prominent,
Yes.
pronounced V. Does that?
Yeah, it's the neck I put up with because it sounds so good.
Yeah, you just get around it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's in a weird tuning right now.
So is this a songwriter guitar for you?
Yeah.
This is sitting on the
I've written
couch.
a lot recently, I've written a lot on this guitar.
Now, this is a recent acquisition. Where did this one come from? Usual suspect. When in Cincinnati, you know?
No, I actually called Gary up and I said, you know, I'm looking for one of these. Do you have? And he sent me two, and this one just spoke to me, you know, and out of the two. And because of my muscle thing, this is the only guitar that I play with 12s on, because if you put 11s on this acoustic, it sounds...
You need to have that.
You need the
tension.
12s.
Yeah.
So, and it's a beautiful, beautiful... It's got all the top, and it's got no boom.
Yeah.
You know,
Focused.
It's already got the 80
cut.
Yeah,
which is great. And by the way, Gary Dick, that's a great close right there. Yeah, I've got two of them. I'll send them both over. And yeah, there's four of them. Just pick the one you like the most. That's like the best close in the business right there.
Yeah.
Just take them all and pick the one you like.
Yeah, Gary he owes me a guitar now for this. We've
All this
mentioned
promo.
some-
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love it to death, this one.
89 years old and still making music.
Yeah, think about that, yeah.
And the condition is...
It's not bad at all.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love these old small body Gibsons.
Yeah.
How obsessed are you with this stuff still? Are you still chasing it? Are you on the road on local Craigslist and on Reverb and stuff?
Of course. The thing about the flood was that I had multiples of certain guitars that I didn't really planned to get one of everything that I ever want, a good one of everything, like a good Telly, a good Strat, good this, good Les Paul, good whatever. I've now become friends with David Davidson.
Yeah.
Well-strung guitars.
Yes.
That Vince Gill, he said, let me tell you, they ain't going to go down in value. Dear Vince. And so, yeah, I've been collecting for a while now.
What's on the list? Give me if you've got what are three things that you don't have that are still out there that you're looking for?
I would really like a 355.
Mono, stereo.
Whatever. That one that's on reverb right now. I really like that one.
That one's pretty good. All right,
Yeah,
that's on the list.
It's on the list. I have a 62 Precision, but I'd like to get the other bass, jazz bass as well. So that's on the list because I love playing bass as well. You know, I'd like to get an original Trini Lopez. I love those. There's just always room for one more guitar, as they say.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm always looking.
You had some health issues. I kind of heard a threat that you might retire. Mm-hmm. Yet I look at the 2024 calendar and Frampton on the road. Are you still having as much fun doing it now? Do you see an end in sight? Or
I see an end, but I don't want to think about it too much, obviously, for obvious reasons. It's an ever-progressing disease, IBM. So these are the guys that I worry about the most. But the weirdest thing, which is so great, when I sit down and put a guitar on my lap, these still know what to do. They might not be able to do quite as much as I used to, especially when I do a session or I go on stage, the adrenaline kicks in and I do things I can't believe I can still do. So, you know, as Les Paul used to say, the guy that does, 1,000 notes a second with the right note, you can kill that guy. While I was listening to to Hank Marvin in the original day, the early days, was Django Reinhardt. And the man only had 2 working fingers. So when I've got 1 finger left, even if it's a 1-note samba, I'm going to be playing. But I just don't know how long I'm going to be able to. Getting around is getting more difficult.
Yeah. The rigors of touring.
Yeah.
But you're still having fun.
I love to play. I mean, it's what I do. And I'm still very optimistic that we'll be able to do something about this. So I have had the best life, musically, family-wise. I cannot complain, you know. I look forward to playing for as long as I can. Maybe then I'll just stop finding young players and producing them.
Well, that's a tiny little gypsy-looking guitar right there. Yes. What do we got here?
It's a Tenor Selmer. I guess you would put Maccaferri with it too. I don't know the exact year of it, but the story behind this is that Jerry Moss of the M of A&M, A&M to start with would distribute through Barclay Records in France. Well, Barclay Records was the record company for Django Reinhardt. There's even a song for Eddie that Django wrote, you know. So he's a very, very close friend. Because Jerry knew how into Django Reinhardt I was because of my parents, he called me up and he said, "Do you want to come to lunch with me and Eddie Barclay?" I said, "Who's Eddie?" Then he explained and said, "Oh my God, yes, I would love to." So this is the man that knows Django, like, you know, very close friend, you know. Go to lunch, and I'm just guffawing about Maccaferris and Django and, you know, what an influence. The thing I loved about Django was he could play 1 note over 7 chord changes, or he could play from the bottom of the neck to the top of the neck. Or, you know,
over 1 chord,
over 1 chord, you know, or less than a chord. You know? But I loved the fact that he was a melodic player, as well as his dexterity was unbelievable, and he only had 2 fingers. These 2 fingers had been burnt, withered in a fire, and they were like, kind of like that. So he was able to use them to make the 9th chord by laying them across. He would use these as like a bar, but on the end, you know, not the bar that you do with your first finger. Christmas comes around and Jerry says, "I've got something to send you." And so I said, "Oh my goodness." He said, "Yeah, it's from Eddie Barclay." I open it up and this guitar was given to Eddie by Django. This was Django's practice guitar in his Caravan.
This is, that's incredible.
It is. It really is. The bridge I had redone. That's the only thing that is new on this, but it's built. It was
same footprint.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Same wood, same everything.
So this is a tenor.
A tenor.
Tenor guitar that originally belonged to Django Reinhardt.
Yeah. Is that bizarre?
Not bizarre. It's amazing. That is. I mean, do you play tenor at all? Or is this more just for the sentimental value?
When I got it, I wrote a song on it, Rocky's Hot Club, which is on the I'm a New record, and this is the guitar I play on it.
Yeah.
I get it out. Thank you. I have to get it out occasionally to show people.
Yes.
And it's just, I miss the other 2 strings. And I do have a Dupont Django. I think we have that coming up too, which was made in France. And if Django were alive today, he would be playing the Dupont because it's a beautiful guitar.
Wow.
It's not that this isn't. This is great, but it's limiting.
Yeah.
Because it's 4 strings.
Can we see that one too?
I think we do have that one, yes.
Here we go again, another, what was called Django style guitar?
Yeah, gypsy jazz guitar.
Gypsy jazz guitar.
Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
Well, I had always wanted to have a 6-string version of that, but realized that the D-shaped hole, which the tenor has, the sound is different.
Yeah, let's talk about sound holes for a second, because this has got kind of the very narrow oval. That one had the big wide D. On these kind of gypsy jazz guitars, how does that impact the tone of these?
Believe it or not, the smaller hole is louder.
Oh, you got more top.
Yes,
Doing its thing.
It's definitely louder. If you think about it, when the Hot Club de France, Stéphane Grappelli, Django, his brother, and the other players within the quintet, there were no microphones. There were no amps. There was no, he had at least two, his brother and the other player, playing rhythm on the D-shaped holes.
Yeah.
Django would be the loudest of the.
And this would cut through.
This would cut through. And then at a later point, he actually put a pickup on his was a Selmer-Maccaferri.
Yeah.
But this model.
Yeah. This.
And
look at this wood too.
It's beautiful.
My God. It's just spectacular. And one thing I always notice about these, they have very square shoulders.
Yes.
On the neck.
Yes.
It's almost like squared off on the side. How do you?
The original ones
are even more.
Are literally like a block. You know? It's but this one is at least rounded a little bit, and it's a little bit big for me. But the sound is so killer that.
Does it just take you there?
Yeah.
I mean, you start playing that style right away.
I try.
Yeah. I mean, we all try, but
that's, As I said, if Django were with us today, he would be playing the Duponts.
Would he be doing?
Because they are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really great.
Wow. Alder body, two-tone, still has that V in the neck. Strats obviously hold a place in your heart.
Yes.
From being a very, very young kid, Marvin and all that kind of stuff. When did this one come around?
This is a recent acquisition. I didn't have a two-tone original one.
Yeah.
And with the maple neck. This is the guitar. This is the year Hank Marvin thought he was getting. He thought he was getting the two-tone maple neck when they ordered it from, I guess they ordered it from America through Selmer, which was the big, I'm guessing.
Distributor then,
Because it's the Buddy Holly guitar.
Yeah.
This is the Buddy Holly guitar. I think they were all in the studio with Cliff Richard and all the Shadows, and they opened it up, and there was this Fiesta Red thing in there, and they went, ew.
It kind of ended up changing history, though, too, for a lot of English guitar players, the Fiesta Red Strat.
So, where's the two-tone one? Oh. So anyway, that supposedly, Cliff Richards told me the story, Hank's told me the story, and neither one are the same. So we'll never really know. And
I heard the story about Selmer that they are actually finishing them in Fiesta Red as well. I've heard that Fender was sending Fiesta Red there, and then I was also heard versions of the story that Selmer was painting them Fiesta Red upon arrival.
Because nobody wanted anything but the one that Hank played.
Which Hank's probably was an original Fiesta Red from Fender, and then they started painting them red after the Shadows and the whole thing.
We all want just like Hank.
Yeah.
So that was, I imagine that's correct, yeah. And
when does the Strat come out now? When do you go for that over a humbucking guitar?
It'll be something that I will write on this and use this sound to be inspired by, to write.
Is this a clean guitar for you, or not an overdrive guitar?
Not really, no.
More of
this would be more of a clean, clean tone, and had to have one of these. Just had to have one. So, but this is a wonderful part of my collection.
If you only have one Strat, a two-tone maple neck Strat,
that's it.
Probably the one to have. That's killer. A Fender I wouldn't necessarily associate with you, but it's a very cool one. What do we got here?
It was Jazzmaster, and this is a 58.
First year.
And it's the reason I got a Jazzmaster was because, it goes back to the Shadows again. Bruce Welch played a Jazzmaster this color.
Yeah.
Probably this year or 59.
Yeah, with the gold guard. Yeah.
Right. While Hank was playing the Fiesta Red Strat.
Yeah.
And this is what Bruce would have had back then. Nirvana and everybody, a lot of the punk bands and everybody had them. And I thought, well, I need to get one. So
this came post-flood then. This is when you were kind of starting to put it all back together and get all the tools for the toolbox.
So this would have been like 2011, 2012.
And where did this one come from, dare I ask?
Yeah, I was living in Cincinnati. So you know what?
From overseas, yeah. All right, Gary got you again.
I always wondered why Gary moved into a bigger house while I was living there.
When do you reach for this? Other than trying to do the what do these pick? This is a home guitar too?
Yeah. This is something that I would have at home. And again, it's got a very specific sound.
Yeah. String bending, probably not the best too on this bridge, but it definitely has a sound. And I love the clay dots on the slide board. It's just the best. I don't know why they didn't do clay dots on everything. It's so great. Love a gold guard.
Yes.
Very cool guitar.
Blew me away with that one.
Oh, another slab board. What year is this?
This is a 59, I believe.
59 slab board Tele. The Steve Cropper, if you will.
Yeah. It's a fantastic guitar.
It's good.
Nice and light.
Good weight.
Yeah.
Great aging on this. How many Telecasters have you gone through in your career, do you think? Always one in the collection, but they come in and out and everything like that.
Yes. But I mean, I generally, apart from the flood, I generally have kept everything. I went through that period when you couldn't have two guitars. Because you couldn't afford to keep this one, and you had to sell this one to get that one. But then it got to the position where I was able to actually keep them all. I generally don't get rid of things once these days. Yeah, these days
that's
I keep them all.
Now, when do you go Tele?
Again, in the early days on my like Frampton's Camel, I used a Tele because I wanted that sound. It's the sound. It's the sound.
Yeah.
This through a twin reverb back then in the 70s was pretty pokey sounding, you know.
Take the paint off the walls.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that it's got this neck on it. When I worked in the shop in Beckenham, Robertson's, on the weekends when I was a kid, I would sell these to people, you know, and go, well, I want that, you know. So it was to be able to actually get one that it's this vintage is very special for me.
Now the slab board is killer. Is there like a blackguard on your list? Is that, or is the maple too much on the Tele?
Yeah, that's too much.
That's bright.
I mean, I've got a rosewood Tele, and I have a custom shop Tele, and I have this one. So I have three. When I need it, it's there, you know. Now,
do you keep the cap on the neck pickup? Do you kind of do that sound, or do you have it opened up where it's a little bit more usable? I haven't done anything to this. Really? So it's however the last owner had it.
Yes.
Custom color alert. You told me this is one of your favorites. What do we got here?
Well, this is a Jaguar, and this is a 63, and don't ask where it came from because you know already.
I already know the answer.
It was supposed to be the guitar that Fender brought out that was going to just like walk all over the Strat.
Oh, this is the top of the line Fender guitar. Yeah.
It's got some wonderful, quirky sounds that you can get out of this thing. The three switches down here and up
rhythm
here,
circuit,
you know, the rhythm up here. And also I love the way the tremolo, you can pick the tremolo up and drop it, and it bang, does that, you know, and so it's got that really great, you know. But if I need a really quirky sound, I'm looking for something different, this is the guitar I go to every time.
This has to probably be the cleanest custom color Fender guitar I've seen in a really long, I mean, the guard is gorgeous, the finish is barely checked, clay dots, love, and some just fantastic figuring on the back of the neck and headstock as well. This again was a post-flood, filling out the toolbox kind of thing. Why the top of the line model would be short scale, I will never understand.
That's right.
Why they chose a short scale guitar to be their top of the line guitar.
I never thought about
24-inch scale,
why it's quirky sounding as well.
Is it 24 or 23? I forget. I'm out of the Fender game for a while, but yeah. Interesting. And the mute.
Yes.
And that's the original foam on the mute too. The foam is still intact. That's how clean this guitar is. So this is kind of a special effect.
It's my special effect guitar. Yeah, absolutely.
If you need to do something
right
outside of the box,
yeah,
it normally comes on this.
And again, you know, depends on what I'm playing. One day I'll pick it up and start putting it through an amp, and all of a sudden the sound of it, again, I'm always inspired by the different sounds.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely going to give you something different than everything else.
Absolutely.
And that is just...
I didn't realize how different it was until I owned one, and then it just kept on opening up with all these other sounds.
Yeah. And that's one of the prettiest ones I've seen. That's really, really killer.
Thank you. I had a Fender 6 bass for years early on in the late 60s, early 70s. Somehow, some way along the way, it went and I got something else. So this is just something that I've always wanted to, again, Jet Harris was the original bass player of the Shadows. He and Tony Meehan was the original drummer of the Shadows, and they both left and they formed a duo, and they had instrumental hits, a couple. This is the type of guitar that Jet would play, not a precision anymore. He went to this because he was playing more melodic stuff.
Yeah.
This is something that I have at home, and I'm working on a song right now that I'm writing on this, you know, because it's playing chords on this with a guitar sound rather than a bass sound is pretty phenomenal.
Now, that this happens to be Olympic Way with the tortoise guard, is that on accident, or was this purchased to match your Jag?
No, it was just
Coincidence.
Coincidence. I mean, there were others that were much more expensive because they were different colors and you know.
So this is what, this is like a 67, 68, got binding and blocks, maybe. Yeah, somewhere in the late 60s.
Yeah.
How does this sit in a track differently than just like a standard P bass? Or, I mean, because you're still technically in the same frequencies, but it has to track. I mean, for people who've never played one of these or experienced it.
Yes.
When you're truly using it as a bass.
Yeah, see, I don't use it as a bass.
More as like a baritone kind of thing?
Exactly.
Okay. So you're playing it as a guitar player?
I'm playing it as a guitar, this one. I bought it to be inspired by it just being that octave lower.
And changing the register
yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Put a little chorus, a little reverb, and a little delay on this puppy, and you've got yourself a song. But it's a beaut. It really is.
And again, the condition is just stunning.
It is, isn't it?
Pick some good stuff.
Yeah.
Did really good, man.
Yeah, I love it. Very nice.
Fantastic. Well, the name Hank Marvin has come up at least a dozen times since we've been filming so far. I'm assuming this as a personal sentimental value to you here, this guitar. What do we got?
We have a Hank Marvin Strat. The story behind this is, obviously, I've always wanted to have, you know, every Strat. The Strat that I had, the 55 Strat, was red, Fiesta Red, the one that got lost in the flood. So when I did my instrumental album, Fingerprints, I love the fact that I got a Grammy for not singing. That's
after all those years.
Yeah,
all you had to do was just play.
I wanted to play just for my guitar playing, so that meant a lot to me. So anyway, I called Hank up. I said, "Would you write a tune with me? I'm doing an instrumental album. Would you write something with me and play on it with me?" And he said, "Oh, we'd love to." So they were doing one of their finale Cliff Richard and the Shadows tours.
Yeah.
And they were in England. So he said, "Well, I'm going back to Australia right after I said, "Well, do you think you could stay one extra day? I'll fly over to London. Who can we get to play with?" He said, "How about the Shadows?"
Why not? Why not? You know?
So I said, "Oh my God." So unfortunately, Bruce Welsh, the rhythm player, had a family thing, whatever. So he wasn't there. But before Hank arrived, I think I was there really early. His tech had one of these, you know, and I'm going, you know, is that what he plays? Yeah, this is what he, and I said, well, where'd you, and he's told me, you know, well, we get a custom shop body and neck from the US, then we bring it over here, and then custom shop Fender UK, Mark Pressling, does the color,
Does the red.
puts it all together. Look at this neck.
I mean, come on. The bird's eye on this maple
phenomenal.
is insane.
And Hank doesn't have huge hands too, so it's very thin neck.
Yeah.
He said, well, we use a special tremolo on it. This whole thing is not Fender at all.
And this is very squared off on the arm.
This is called an easy mute, so you can,
grab it.
So you can mute the strings on the bridge and still use the tremolo on it. It doesn't get in the way.
You have that angle.
Because of this angle here. This piece, they recommended that I go to Ian St. John White, who is now a great friend over there. If Hank were to walk in the room, he would pick this up and this would be set up for him.
Just set up.
It's ready to go for him.
Yeah.
It really does have, I can get that shadow sound out of this like that.
Speaking of pickups, is this a special set that's wound, or is this just
these are custom shop, regular Strat. Hank uses the noiseless ones. I wanted original ones that sound more original.
Yeah.
And then I'll just face the right way in the studio.
the noises? Yeah, you play the game in the chair.
My back is to the speakers. If I find the spot, it's over there.
But the noise is part of the charm.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely part of the charm.
And it makes for a very, very Stratty sound, So I know that a lot of Strat players don't use the noiseless ones now. And I understand.
I get it.
On stage, it's horrendous, for that.
All right. We got a late 60s choral electric sitar here, but I have a feeling it has more of a story than just that.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about this thing?
Well, I always wanted one. Cry Like a Baby and all those. I always wanted one of these. And I'm a new record at Electric Lady, which was Jimi Hendrix's studio. Obviously, he'd passed away by then. But the day that I finished the album and we were checking out, as it were, the manager at that time, he was walking up to me, had a guitar case. He put it down and he said, we just wanted to thank you for choosing our place to record this album. And if Jimmy were alive, I'm sure he would have wanted you to have this. His exact words. So I opened it up and it's this. I said, oh my God. Jerry Stickles, who was the tour manager and his tech at one point, I think, in his book says Jimmy had 3 of these made for him. He said, I know where 2 of them are. He said, but I don't know where the 3rd one is.
This is it.
This is it. So this is Jimmy's.
Do you know if Hendrix used, well, maybe not this one, but what did he use a sitar on? Are there any tracks?
I'm not sure.
I don't know of any.
But as this one was at the studio, if he played one, I'm thinking this was the one he would have played.
Yeah.
Because it was there already.
For people who are not familiar with how the choral sitars work, explain.
Well, it's got this rubber.
It kind of mutes the string right off the bat. Yeah. And then you have your drones.
Yeah.
With its own pickup that just kind of sympathetically vibrate.
Exactly.
And you can control.
Yes, you got the volume on those. Right.
Yeah.
And it's
nothing else you can do it on.
No, it's fantastic.
And if you can have Hendrix's, that's a plus.
Yeah, it's the other part of the story is that when we did the Glass Spider tour with David Bowie, there was one song he would do every now and again. He wouldn't do it every night, and it needed this sound. So I said, I've got one of those. He said, oh, great. We went sort of Spinal Tap on it. And there were braces on this guitar, and it went up on 2 wires up into the top of the stage.
Like Stonehenge.
Yes. And then when it would lower down, and I just put the guitar that I was playing behind my back and just walk up to this and play it. And we would just laugh every time it came down. And sometimes it would come down, bang me in the head. So, I thought, if that's what you need, I've got it. And here it is.
There it is. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to go through all these guitars with me. Some incredible stories, man. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, I did. It's fun to see them all one after the other, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Normally I would only see a couple at a time, you know, so this has been wonderful. And thank you so much for doing this.
Well, I can't wait to see you out on the road here in 2024.
We'll be out there March and April.
We'll be looking for you. Hey, till we see you next time, I'm Mark Agnesi from Gibson TV. We'll see you on the next episode of The Collection. Peace.
Bye-bye.